Duryodhana was told by Shakuni, why don't you build a house which was completely made of flammable materials, combustible materials? That means things that will burn quickly, like wax, shellac, like that. These things will burn very, very quickly. So he told, you build a palace, you get Purochana, he's a very expert builder. Get him to build a palace exactly like any other palace, but then completely made of flammable materials, things that will catch fire quickly. And invite the Pandavas with their mother Kunti to that palace. Let them live there. And one opportune day, we can kill all of them by burning the entire palace down. Duryodhana rubbed his hands in glee. He thought, this is this is a brilliant plan. Then he thought, but then I have to take permission from our father. He will not agree. So Duryodhana had already softened Dhritarashtra's heart earlier only by going and complaining constantly. So when he went and told this to Dhritarashtra, Dhritarashtra somehow agreed to this plan stealthily. Purochana was called. Duryodhana gave him the assignment, and the Pandavas and Kunti Maharani were called by Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra said, oh my dear boys, you must be tired after the various responsibilities that you've been taking care of. We have built a wonderful palace for you. Why don't you go there with your mother and have a nice time, enjoy. A festival is going to happen in that place. That place was known as Varnavata. So later, Vidura sent word through some messengers that this was actually Duryodhana's plan and Dhritarashtra's plan and Shakuni's plan. Be careful. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, he asked the 5 Pandavas, all of them, they started digging a tunnel. One particular room, they dug a tunnel, and the tunnel reached outside, many miles outside Varnavata. They dug a tunnel, and one night, they themselves set fire to the palace and escaped through the tunnel. And they reached outside the Varnavata place. You can see how the whole palace immediately caught fire and they all escaped from there. So, incidentally, what happened? Unfortunately, what happened? A couple with 5 sons, a mother with her 5 sons, they also reached there. And somehow in that palace, they stayed in the night. They thought, okay, we will take shelter of this palace in the night. And they stayed there, and their bodies got burnt there. So next day, when people went there to look for the Pandavas, they found the burnt, charred bodies of a woman and her 5 sons. So they thought that the Pandavas and Maharani Kunti are no more. They have been finished. In the fire, somehow the palace got fire and they've all died. So this news went to Duryodhana and his heart was jumping with joy. Dhritarashtra, very, very cunningly but silently, without anybody's knowledge, he was happy, thinking that at last my son Duryodhana will become the king. My brother unfairly, he took away the kingdom from me. Actually, I should have been the king, but then the kingdom was taken away. Now, at least my son should rule the kingdom. So saying so, he thought about this and he left the matter there. But then here what happened? Here, Maharani Kunti and the 5 Pandavas escaped into the forest. So one thing that I want to talk about here is that the people, they saw some bodies and then they kind of concluded that these bodies were of Kunti Maharanis and the 5 Pandavas. The Pandavas went and lived there and they saw the palace, but until Vidura told, they were not able to figure out that this was not a real palace. It was actually a palace meant to create a tomb for them. This was their graveyard. So they saw things, but then they were not able to understand things. So actually, generally, we consider seeing is believing. But then we see so many instances in the Mahabharata where actually seeing was not believing. People saw something and something else was really happening. Okay. So now let's do one quick activity. I want you to type in the chat box a few examples of things we believe in, but we do not see. We don't see with our eyes. Okay, now give me examples of things we do not believe in, but we see. Some examples I will tell you. Now, many things which we believe in, but we don't see. Some examples like air, many of you mentioned. The microwaves, that are electromagnetic waves that are there that carry television signals, mobile signals, all of these, we know these waves are there, but we don't see them. And also things like X-rays. Okay, God also is a very good example. We believe in God, but then we don't really see God. Okay, now many things we see, but we don't believe in. These are some of the examples. Actually, that's not water. It's called a mirage. The second example, now can you tell me if the tracks of a railway line, are they converging? They seem to be touching somewhere. There are suspended particles of water, droplets of water in the air, and those particles or droplets of water start acting like a prism. And when sunlight passes through that, the sunlight breaks. It's called refraction of light. Because of refraction of light, we are kind of able to see the rainbow. But if you take a helicopter and if you keep flying towards the direction of the rainbow, you'll see that the rainbow just disappears somewhere. Okay, you can't see the rainbow in reality. So you see, there are things that we don't see, but we believe in. There are things that we see, but we don't believe in. So really, what is the value of our seeing? So why do we see things like this? It is actually not reality, but then we see. How can we really trust our eyes? Because seeing is not really believing. Why? Because there are defects in every human being. 4 defects specifically. The first defect is known as Karana Patava in Sanskrit. You can remember in English. They're known as imperfect senses. Like I have already proven with different examples, our eyes are imperfect. Reality is something, but it shows something else. Our nose also. If you smell, say, different perfumes, and say after 3-4 perfumes, you will not be able to distinguish between one perfume and the other. Our nose becomes conditioned. It goes crazy. Ears also, similar thing. Somebody may do like this from this side, we'll turn this side. Like somebody is walking on your right and they do like here, like this on the left side, we will turn towards the right side thinking that the person is here. Our ears also are imperfect. Our skin is imperfect. You put your finger into, say, lukewarm or warm water, little hot, not very hot, hot water, and then pick your finger out of it and then put it in room temperature water, you will feel the room temperature water is cold. On the other hand, if you put your finger in cold water for say 30 seconds or something, and then pick your finger, lift your finger and put it in room temperature water, you will feel that the room temperature water is warm or hot. So our skin is also imperfect. So our eyes are imperfect, our nose is imperfect, our ears are imperfect, the skin is imperfect, our tongue is also imperfect. If you eat a sweet which is very sweet and then you eat a sweet which is less sweet, then you'll feel like, oh, the less sweet, you'll not feel the second sweet to be sweet at all. So all our senses are imperfect. Because of this reason, we have a tendency to become illusion. We take one thing for the other. And because of this illusion, we commit mistakes. And When we commit mistakes, what do? We try to cover up. So there is also a cheating propensity. So these are the 4 defects of every human being: Karana Patava, Pramada, Brahma, and Vipralipsa. You can remember in English, imperfect senses, we have a tendency to get illusion, and we have a tendency to commit mistakes because of that. And then after committing a mistake, we want to cover up, we want to cheat others, so there is a tendency to cheat or cheating propensity. So remember, seeing is not always believing. So